Hey y'all, this is the official tutorial for the viral hand knit hoodie. If you're around for 2021, you already know, but I wanted to gift it to you guys as a thank you for 600 subscribers. In this tutorial, I do mention a PDF, but I have dropped down below in the description box all of the measurements that you are required to take to make this hoodie. I hope that you guys enjoy this, and thank you so much again for 600 subscribers. Happy Vlogmas Day to y'all! Hello, thank you so much for purchasing this tutorial. In this tutorial, I included in the PDF the measurements that you're going to be needing, so please reference back to that for the video. In this video, we're going to make a front and back panel, a hood, and 2 sleeves. The sleeve is worked in a spiral, and then these are 2 separate panels, and then the hood. You're going to need either Yarn B Eternal Bliss, or you can use Bernat Blanket Big. There is no need for any hook or needle for this tutorial. So starting off, we're going to need to create a chain. So for that, wrap the yarn around your left hand, create a loop, kind of like the breast cancer ribbon. Pull up your working strand and tighten. This is called a slip knot. Again, with your left hand here, wrap the yarn around, create a loop, and pull up your working strand. And when I say working strand, that simply means the strand of yarn that is connected to the big ball and not the loose end. Now we're going to begin working on our chain. For this first chain, we're working on the front and or back panel. It's going to be exactly the same. You're going to need the measurements of shoulder to shoulder and add 6 inches. Also, it is important to cross-reference the size of their bust, just in case they have a larger bust and it is a big difference between the two. Instead of using shoulder to shoulder, just use their bust measurements, or yours if you're not sewing. So to create a chain, you're going to stick your 2 fingers through the loop that we just created and pull up a new loop. Same thing. Fingers in between the loop, grab your yarn, pull up a new loop. Fingers in, pull up a new loop. I'm going to continue doing this for 14 chains. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So now we're going to begin laying our work on the floor for better access. So with this last loop created, it's gonna be called our first loop of our first row. So this is gonna be our first chain, and now we're gonna work on our first row. So you're gonna put your finger through the top of the chains. This is where you're gonna pull up the loop. Pretty much the same thing as creating a chain, but we're creating more loops. I like to place my hand over the last loop created so that when I go to pull up my next, I don't mess up the tension of that one. So place your hand here and pull up the next loop. You're just going to continue that along the row. Okay, so now my first row is completed. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 loops. So whatever amount of chain you did up is the same amount of loops that you should have for your first row. For the remainder of the front and back panel, which is made exactly the same, you're just going to continue to pull up loops. So we have our working strand here and our last loop created. We're going to insert our fingers into the last loop and pull up a new one for our second row. I like to go ahead and move my yarn to the opposite side so that my tension is nice. And again, placing my hand on both the previous loop and the bottom loop as well to keep that good tension. All you're doing is pulling up loops. And that is the end of row 2. You're going to do the exact same thing for the remaining rows, just pulling up loops across each row. You're going to continue that until you get the desired height of the front and back panel. Create this process 2 times. Hello, this is voiceover K. So I decided to actually add in this slow motion up close clip because I realized my arm was in the way for a portion of it. So if you need this slow motion portion of the video, go ahead and watch. If not, you go ahead and fast forward to the end of your first panel. The next clip will work on how to tie off that panel. So simply you're going to grab the first loop from this row and you're going to pull the next loop through it. I'm trying to do this with one hand so my arm doesn't block it. And again, pull the next loop through it. Pull the next loop through it. And continue this across the row. So I just pulled up and now I have my last loop. I am going to, this is my working strand. I like to pull it through twice. So basically doing a chain of 2. So chain 1 and chain 2. Then you're going to disconnect the yarn. I like to leave a long tail because later on we are going to be doing some weaving. You can use scissors, but I just pull. Pull up that strand now and tighten your knot. You can do 1 chain, it's up to you, but I just prefer to do 2. So you're literally going to do the exact same thing for your back panel. So if you need to rewind and rewatch how we just made the front panel, go ahead. I'm going to complete the back panel off of camera. So now I have both the front panel and the back panel complete. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the sleeves. For our sleeve, we're going to start it exactly the same with a slip knot. Then you're going to need the measurement of your bicep. I'm gonna go ahead and chain up a total amount of 10 for mine. Now to make our chain into a loop. So making sure that your chain is not twisted, you're going to create your loop and put it inside of the first chain. Actually, I need this. So here we have a loop, and then our working strand needs to be at the top and not going through the loop at the bottom. It should look like that. I'll do it again. So you have your line, your chain. Then you're simply going to slide your last loop from your chain into the first chain, making for a sleeve. So for the sleeve, it's going to be the exact same process as the front and back panel, just pulling up loops, but we're going to work it in a spiral, so it may feel a little different, but it's exactly the same. So I'm just going to begin pulling up loops. And I say spiral because instead of round, because you're never going to end off a round. You're just going to continue working up until you get to your desired sleeve length. And then this is the first loop from the round. So you're literally just going to pull up and continue to work in a spiral. When you're doing this, it's important to be careful of potentially dropping a loop because it's kind of hard to do it laying flat on the ground. If you need, also you can do stitch markers. I pretty much can tell when it's the end of a round, or you can count up each row to make sure when you end off, you're ending off on an even round. So this is what I have so far. You're literally going to continue that same thing until you get your desired length of the sleeve. I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll show you back here what your sleeve should look like. My sleeve is now complete. I did a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for mine. One thing I like to do with ending off the sleeve is to pull up bigger loops. So it's obviously not going to be this big, but I need some room to make these ones bigger. This is so that when I am tying it off, it doesn't become so tight. Okay, so now I have like extremely loose loops here. Our end of our working yarn is connected here as our last part of the round. So I'm going to begin at the start. I'm just going to pull these through like we did before. Because if these loops were so tight, it would then make this so tight around the arm, and that's uncomfortable. So I ended out with my loop here. This is the last one I pulled up, and I just have one loop left and my working yarn. I'm gonna take it through the very first loop that we started with closing off, pull that last one through, and do a chain of 2. Leave a long tail for the weaving of for sewing on the sleeve. And then tie that knot. So you guys see, with me creating a bigger loop for the armhole, it actually has some room. opposed to if I were to keep those loops tight, it would be tight on the bicep. So now we have a front panel, a back panel, and a sleeve. I'm gonna go ahead and complete the next sleeve off of camera, and then after that all we have to do is the hood and sewing it all together. So now we have 2 sleeves, front panel, back panel. Now let's work on the hood, the last version of this hood. Now we are on to the hood. It is made just as a rectangle is made. So you're gonna keep your slip knot. I make all my hoods the same size, so I do a chain of 12, 8 rows up. And you can choose to follow that as well and just see how that works out for you and if you need to adjust. So there's my chain 12. Then I am just going to be pulling up loops. It's literally a rectangle, just as the front panels were made. I'm gonna go up 8 rows and then I'll meet you guys back here. So I have complete my 12 stitches across, 8 rows up. I am going to fold my hood in half before we even close off the hood. So with the right side in the inside, so wrong side out, you're just gonna fold it in half. And make sure that you have exactly 6 on one side. Okay, perfect. It's folded in half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So we're going to be weaving in these 2 sides together. So what I'm going to do, okay, so this is my working yarn is on that side. This is the center of the hood, the rectangle. I am going to pull through a loop from the other side, move up 1, then pull through a loop from the back side, move up 1, go back to the other side, up 1, back to the other side, move up 1, back to the other side, move up to the last one, and back to the other side. So now we have our hood connected. We're going to do the same thing that we ended off the other 2. Chain up 2, pull a long tail, tight it off, and tighten your knot. So this is with it the wrong side out. We just finished weaving the 2 sides together. I'm gonna go ahead, put the right side out, and you have a hood. Seamlessly connect it together. If you need to play that back, you definitely can. But now it is time to construct. So we can begin by just weaving in the ends of the hood, the one that we just tied off. This part won't be used to sew anything to connect it, so we can go ahead and weave this in and then cut off the excess. I'm just tucking it between other stitches. this is really self-explanatory, so I'm going to finish weaving this in and then I'll meet you back. So now I have one of our panels laid out, making sure that the bottom is at the bottom and the top is at the top. Then I'm going to lay the other right on top, making sure that the right sides are facing each other. So you see how that is the right side. Now you're going to see it outside because the right sides are facing. We're going to sew these two together, making sure that we leave a neck hole. I'm going to leave a neck hole of 8. So I'm going to sew together 4 on each side because I have a total of 14. It's as simple as grabbing I personally like to do a chain when I do my first sew through. That's just for security purposes. You don't have to, but you can. I do. Then continue to weave through until you get to the neck hole of this side. So this is my 4th one. I'm going to pull it tight and I'm going to chain up 2 and secure this knot. All right, and then I'm just going to weave in that end and do the same exact thing on that side. I now have both shoulder parts connected with a neck hole. Now I'm going to sew up the side. So for this portion, you want to make sure to leave enough room for your sleeve. So I'm just going to need to sew up up into here will be perfect for the armhole. So I'm just going to start from the bottom. Again, I like to do that. Start with a chain, tighten it, and that's just for security. Then you're just going to weave up until you reach the armhole. So I can go ahead and stop there. That last pull through, just going to do chain up of 2. And then I'm going to weave in this excess yarn through and do the same exact thing on the other side. So now we have the shoulder part connected, we have the side connected. We're going to go ahead and attach our sleeve. So with the right side facing out, you're just going to stuff the sleeve hole. Like so. Then you're just going to sew around. And you're going to do the same thing for the other side. So I've turned the hoodie right side out, and all we have left is to add our hood. So here's our hood, and I'm just going to weave it in like I did everything else. So the hood is 12 stitches across. So the back at least is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to start the hood two in. So 1, 2. Then I'm just going to weave the hood like you did everything else. That is the last part of this tutorial. After I weave this in and I cut off all my excess yarn, then I'm gonna put this on my mannequin because this is the order, so I won't model it. And then show you guys the final look. Now the sweater is complete. You have your sleeves, your hood, and of course if you don't want it cropped, you can always make it longer. But yeah, that's how you make the hand knit chunky hoodie.